So, you talked a little bit about, some of your successes and failures in real estate investing. Can you give us some examples of some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it all started when I came on board at Rich Dad. And prior to coming on board to Rich Dad, I didn't quite understand what investing really meant. And many people that are on the call, if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you'll see that Sharon talks about her son in the beginning of the book who got into credit card debt into college. Well, that was me. I really didn't understand that process. So starting out, I had some holes I had to dig out of. And I realized that coming on board at Rich Dad, I'd been going to some of the Rich Dad seminars and saw a great opportunity in this whole world of real estate. So one of my best friends at the time we went into business together. And we went to buy our first couple real estate investments. And the first one was a fourplex. And in fact, we talk about this fourplex quite a bit in many of the other products that we offer and online. But I made every mistake I possibly could make in that book. And in fact, we do Tuesday morning meetings here at the Rich Dad office that we tape, which is part of Insiders. And every week Robert would come, okay, so, and by the way, my friend worked here at the same time. What is it that Dumb and Dumber did this week? And and I think some of the biggest lessons really came back to why we're having this call today, which was I didn't have the right team. Even though I'm surrounded by all these incredible people, I went to a Rich Dad seminar and I met this lady who was a realtor. And she said, yeah, I've been in the business for 20 years. And it turned out that I didn't ask any more questions. I was green and I was just fired up, ready to go. Here I've got all these people behind me. And it turned out that she had been in the business for 20 years. But for over 19 of those, she was a receptionist. She wasn't even a realtor. And in that process, she said, oh, I've got the right inspector for you. And she said, you don't even have to go, I'll be there. They didn't identify some of the big problems like some mold, AC units that we had to replace. The list can go on and on and
She
on.
essentially didn't do her job.
Well, and she thought she was. Right. She really did. And the lesson for me, and the other thing that happened on that one too, is that we actually had a second fourplex under contract that she didn't keep up with the timing, and we ended up losing our earnest money on that. Now, how often do you hear about people losing their earnest money from a real estate deal? It just doesn't happen that often. And for me, what I learned is that I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't find the right team members for myself. I didn't look for I didn't even have the right mortgage person. It was just a complete mess, and it was the best mess I could have had. I learned so much from that. My partner and I, we ended up splitting. We've rarely talked since because we really had. It's really easy to have a partnership when you're making money. It's more difficult to have a partnership when you're losing money. And so we ended up fire selling that property and took our losses. And I was starting back at square one. Actually less than, because obviously I'd lost a good portion of that money that I invested into that property. And from there, that's when I really got that greatest lesson of understanding my team. So the next fourplex I did, I found a realtor that had been a realtor for many, many years, personally owned 45 units, had structured a deal where he had taken a 40-unit apartment complex, had broken it down, and each building had 4 units, so had broken it down to 4 unit, so fourplexes, resold those off, and then had an exit strategy to resell it as a 40-unit apartment complex. He brought to the table 100% financing. He brought to the table a management company, and the deal with a management company also cash flowed. So here I was, I had no money in the deal, I was making money every month, and I didn't have to manage it. And I had a defined exit strategy where I made all that money back plus. And it was from that experience that I realized, your team makes all the difference in the world. And it's because I was asking the right questions at that time. And since then, I've also owned other single-family homes, a total of 11 units. About a year and a half ago, at the really right close to the peak of the real estate market here in Phoenix, I sold my last single-family home, and my wife and I took those proceeds and bought a business together. And through that, a whole nother set of learning opportunities, created themselves. And my process has been that I go and I do something, I get the lessons, and then I take what I've learned and be able to apply it into the next. So just a couple months ago, we actually just sold that business. We had it for a year, and now I'm looking at my next one. And it's just one step at a time. It's been just fascinating.
And again, it sounds like just being in the game too. It's not about not making mistakes. It's just about making those mistakes faster. I think that's what Robert teaches.
Yeah.
Essentially.
But one of the things we were talking about earlier today, Corey, was that the thing that happened for me personally, even though I learned all these lessons and I still was in the game, I missed out on one of the greatest real estate booms in the history of the world. I was, when I did that first fourplex, it was 2001. And in a fourplex, was running at shy of $30,000 a unit, and it was those things were cash flowing upwards of $500 to $600 a month. And and looking out today, it's very difficult to find one of those. But instead of really driving hard into the game, I backed off. Here I was, I got scared, I had lost money, I did another deal, but I could have done 5, 6, 10, 20 of them to a point to where, had I been paying attention at that moment, I could have been financially free at that point. So the fact that I learned that lesson too was something that I won't miss that again. I won't miss another boom in the market. In fact, I'm starting to be able to see what those trends are. I'm starting to be able to see which markets are going up and versus going down, and seeing where people are transferring, where those opportunities are, whether it be in gold, silver, oil, real estate, business, aspects of business, the market, whatever those pieces are. What we do here at Rich Dad is we really train our brain to see where the next opportunity is.
Can you talk a little bit more about those trends? First of all, maybe just dive in a little bit. What was happening at that time that made real estate spike so much, and then what's happening now in the market with other trends and such that may as we saw the oil spike,
right,
and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, in 2001, and hindsight's 2020. Obviously, I was able to discover this after. But as you look at the real estate market, two primary things were happening. Number one, the stock market. People were concerned about the stock market. They were taking their money out of the stock market. But number two, and more importantly, is that what was happening is that the Fed, the government, was printing more money, and they were making money cheaper. And therefore, because they were making money cheaper, it allowed for that process. And then the other thing that happened too, which is something that we studied in a book called The Dollar Crisis, which was one of the 2 days that Robert put on about a year ago, was the impact of the U.S. dollar and foreign investments into the U.S. market. So much money is coming back into the U.S. from foreign investors that's helped drive that piece. And so interesting looking at the trends. I couldn't see that at that point in time. I couldn't see that that people were going to come out of the stock market and want to go somewhere else. I couldn't predict where they were going to go. And predicting isn't even the right, but just being at the right place at the right time is such an important piece in this whole venture. So, looking at today, about a year ago, gold and silver spiked like crazy within that last year. And, the reason that it spiked was the value of the dollar was dropping. And so as you look at all of these different elements within the marketplace, you'll start to see where the opportunities are.